Well, speaking of short term, we're almost into March, so I think it would be a good moment to go over the most anticipated, at least our most anticipated comic books coming out next month. So why don't you start off with one, comic book stash? I know you sent me your list of 3.
I want to tell you first of all, great segue. I don't know how you pulled that one off, but
Yeah, so smooth.
you got it.
I don't feel like it was that smooth, but hey, if you guys say it was, we'll go with
if
that,
people
right?
really think about it, you know, I was like, you said it, and I was like, February is 28 days shortest month. You got it.
I find my ways, man.
I guess I'll do Batman 133 by Chip Zdarsky. Man, what a run he's had.
Man, what a huge team on this.
Yeah.
I will say,
Zdarsky writing, Miguel Mendoza, like, oh my goodness, so many people on one book.
Nothing against the current artist, but Jorge Jimenez started, you know, doing the art for this run, and I do miss it. The art right now is fantastic. But there's something about that Jorge Jimenez writing. I know he would just went viral with a tweet about how he drew, you know, Bruce Wayne, but God, that I know he's coming back soon to it. He took like a mini like break, but that run is so good. I do think it'll become like a modern classic. The failsafe arc was incredible.
I was gonna say, for people who haven't read that arc, why don't you give us like a really quick rundown on what like the major plot point is?
It starts with someone frames Batman for murder. I'm not gonna say who, and Batman had devised a robot to kill him if he ever killed someone.
Hence, failsafe.
Yeah. So the thing is, Batman knows everyone's weakness. Batman knows how to basically kill anyone in the Justice League. And he designed a robot that could kill him.
If you think about it, that makes sense, though, because if he can take out everybody, I mean, including Superman, then that technically makes Batman the most dangerous person on Earth.
Yeah, no, 100%. But that makes failsafe the most dangerous weapon ever created.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess my question would be, is this the first time Batman's been framed for murder? Because it doesn't feel like it would be.
No, but they don't really go into it, man.
I know. I'm just saying. I just think
hey, listen, there's some crazy
broke the continuity there,
like
with that
bananas things that happen in this, like, what is it, like? It's like 8 issues by now in this like run by Chip Zdarsky. There's some crazy things that happen. I mean, Batman survives some things that would make me question if he has powers or not.
Yeah,
but
especially in Fear State.
Yeah,
during
what
that
a
whole
run!
story.
I don't know, there's nothing specifically interesting about issue 133. I'll tell you that much.
It's just the next run you've really been enjoying. Like, hey, that's an anticipated book in my book. Shoot,
I've been having this issue where like I'll buy a bunch of books and not read them. But I can tell you the one book that I will for sure read, sometimes in my car outside of my LCS, is Batman.
Hey, if you gotta know, you gotta know right then, right?
Yeah, it's
I've been reading. I've read stuff in line on my way up to the counter before. Like, dude looked at me like, "You want to buy it now? You just read it." I'm like, "Yeah, I still want to buy it. I just read it. I consumed the media. Now I owe you money." Like,
yeah, no, my friend. I have a friend at work who now, you know, I basically forced him into being a TikToker. It was funny, but his name is Euro's Gift on TikTok. He would we buy the same books. So I know that for sure. If we buy a Batman the next day at work, it's
yeah.
Did you read it? Did you read it?
That's cool though. You actually have somebody in real life to like sit down and like chop it up with about comics though, because a lot of us don't. Like a lot of us like this is our outlet.
It's good. I knew he liked superheroes, so I really just basically was like, "Hey, have you ever read a comic book?" And he was like, "Yeah, online," and I was like, "Happy birthday!"
Hey, there you go. That's a good way to start a friendship right there, man.
Yeah, no, he's one of my closest friends right now. He might be watching this. I didn't want him to know that, but appreciate him a lot.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, Batman, man, I don't know. Detective Comics is also really good, but Batman for me right now is really doing it.
Heck yeah. So you know me, I like to give people new number ones to read every month when I do these. So my first one is actually a DC book. For me, that's very rare that I recommend
Yeah.
a DC book or anticipate a DC book, but Superman Lost looks like it's going to be really cool.
That cover is
You know what?
really, really nice.
I'm gonna
Isn't
do it
it
right
though?
now.
I mean, here, I'll bring the slide back up. I mean, that cover is
That's
alone
epic. I
drew my
mean,
attention to it.
It
that
looks
cover
so
is
good.
begging for a remark, man. And all around Superman, it is begging for a signature and a remark.
It looks so good. In
Mhm.
fact, that I mean, I'm putting it on my pull list right now.
See, that's how the dude, that's how it
It's
was for me. As
already.
soon as I saw the cover, I'm like,
Yeah.
he's
I sort
lost,
of.
and the cover shows him in space. That looks like something that's probably cool. And
It's.
if
I've
you
heard
want the
about
brief,
it.
I was gonna say, if you want the brief synopsis that
Mhm.
I was able to find online, basically, they're calling this Superman's Odyssey of Solitude. After Superman is called away on a routine Justice League mission, Lois Lane awakens to find a complete stranger standing in her living room. The Man of Steel, home much sooner than expected, reveals he has, in fact, been lost in space for 20 years. So it just
What?
goes from there. It's like, what?
I'm gonna read it.
Right. I mean, how can that not sound
All
interesting to
right.
somebody?
Thank you.
Damn, it's
I
pretty
just
good.
told you I wanted to get into Superman, and here you go. Doing it.
Ask and you shall
Dude,
receive,
that's a
my
great way
friend.
to get into it too. I think I mean, I remember from the 90s, it was that new Spider-Man McFarlane run that got me into Spider-Man a little bit, Like
I mean, that cover is
ah,
iconic.
yeah. Yeah. It's just and that's another one. There's like a million copies out there. Like
I have at least two different ones.
the silver, they got the gold, they got the
I have the black one with
Oh, this
the.
Superman Lost has
uh,
probably got, I think, like 14 different variant covers.
You know, and I know this is not the topic. I'm a cover A kind of guy.
I am too, unless it's a particular artist or a really, really cool looking cover. Like
Yeah,
it's got to be really special looking for me to want it, or it's got to be by a particular artist.
if
Like
you
if it's a
throw me like
Momoko cover, y'all know I've got
mm,
a whole short box full of Momoko. Like I buy almost every cover that comes out from her.
if you throw me like a shiny like cover, I'm a simple man. You know, you
I
throw
like
me
shiny
something
stuff too,
shiny, and
man. Foil covers is a weakness of mine,
for
100%.
Action Comics 1050. There was a foil cover that I
I got
just
it over
had
here in
to
a
buy
pile.
it. It was
It's
so
so
good.
pretty.
And then if Alex Ross does anything, I know he doesn't do a lot of variants, but if Alex Ross is in
yeah.
anything, I have to buy it.
Have you seen his villain variants? That might be a topic for the next
Yes.
podcast because they'll
Yes.
start coming out by then, I think.
Yes. I don't know. It's Alex Ross could just put out anything. And I'd be like,
I liked what Ken brought up too with No One Number One from Image. I mean, man, we are getting creative these days with a companion podcast. Patton Oswalt and Rachel Lee Cook. I mean,
That's awesome though.
yeah.
That is how you draw in more people. You make it as real as you can without being hokey about it. And
yeah,
like how
no,
they're doing with the tying in that podcast with that, they're tying in the Scott Lang book that's coming out with the movies. Like that's cool, man.
Yeah.
somewhere in the on YouTube, there's this documentary about I think it was Dark Knight came out. They did a bunch of like a Comic-Con and everything. They did a bunch of like, oh, the Joker sent out a message, like, and it was just this like crowd of people like looking for clues at Comic-Con, and it's like probably like an hour where there's like multiple episodes, but it gets people going.
Yeah.
It's interactive. Interactive makes it better, 100%.
100%.
It's like X-Men right now.
Fun.
X-Men does like their like you can vote for who becomes a member of the team, I believe.
That's
and
cool.
people eat that up, and I get it because that's me.
DC did it for if they were going to do Superboy or Green Lantern or a whole bunch of other stuff this past year. So,
Oh, and after the Batman came out, remember that whole like Everyone was on the edge of their seat with the whole the Riddler with his ongoing riddles, and it was what was it? I can't remember the website. What was the website? And we had to keep going back to it, and eventually we finally got that, that Joker deleted scene or whatever was basically what was at the very end of it. But man, I remember solving those riddles, trying to figure this out, and
it's fun. It's
remember
just more nerdy stuff for nerds. Like, you gotta love
friend
it.
Sarah, my friend Sarah, which I think you know her, JJ. I'm low-key dumb. She loves Batman. I actually
Real quick shout out to I'm low-key dumb, because I would not know how to operate OBS without her. I would not know how to operate a podcast without her. I would not know how to do half the crap I do without I'm low-key dumb. And it took her 20 minutes to teach me all that crap. So she is a beast. She is awesome.
No, she loves the Batman, and one of the things I wanted to watch that movie with her because I know how much Batman means to her. And God, what an experience. And I remember just being at work and she would send me like, hey, the new riddle came out. And I would tell my manager, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And sit in the
and finding somebody who loves stuff that much and gets that excited about stuff, that just makes it more fun for you too. Like,
no, I mean, not only is it an interactive experience, but like it wasn't easy to solve. Let's be honest.
No, it was really hard to solve. Like I remember writing down there was like an answer key, and you had it was a pain in the butt, man. It wasn't.
But having a friend there to do it with me, although she did most of it, I'm not gonna take any.
But what's your next pick for March, man?
Oh, my next pick for March.
Yeah, we both still got 2 more to go. We keep getting sidetracked, but I don't care. This is fun. This is good. This is the perk of live podcasting.
Unstoppable Doom Patrol #1.
The one with the long name. Yes. I got one with a long name too, though, so don't feel bad.
I'm watching the show, which Doom Patrol is a fantastic show. I mean,
I have not watched enough of it. I've only watched like 1 or 2 episodes.
It's so odd, but it's so good. I mean, I love everyone in that show is just out of this world, and it's okay. I know some people, Grant Morrison, they wrote a portion of the book. Gerard Way wrote, another run, and it's just always been something that's been on my mind. Like, I like the show, and I like very silly things. That's why I like Spider-Ham. That's why I like Captain Carrot. I just they call to me. I don't think everything should be that serious.
100%.
Well, it's called comics.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I mean, it came from the funny papers, right? Like that's where all this originated from. So
I was gonna say I was doing research after Ant-Man, and I don't know how I got into this. I started to look into how did I get into this? I was looking at, I think it was like a Marvel history book or something I was looking into, and it was, God, I forgot what it was. Like 34 was the first guy who basically put the funny pages into a book, and he was like the father of comic books, and going through all that, and then like Timely, and then DC, and it's fascinating. I love history. I think it's
because the Shadow was one of the first characters to get his own full like actual comic book, because he started as a radio thing, and then he moved into getting his own Pulp Fiction novels, and then he was in the comic books, and he's still around. Like they still throw him into stories now and then.
It's people should look more into those things. Like for example, Spider-Ham is a character that like you can know the basic gist of it. It's a pig. It's a spider. It gets bit by a pig, becomes Spider-Ham. But the story of it, I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about it. I will be making a video about it. And if anyone wants to steal that idea, they'll have to fight me, and probably they'll win. But I do want to make a video about that. I don't know. It's just so interesting to me. Like it's still a very serious book, and you can tell the people who made it, like, but
actually
everything
cared about it. Yeah, but.
And Doom Patrol hits that same part of my brain where I'm like, this is stupid, but it's so good.
Yeah.
And I'm even looking into buying the Grant Morrison omnibus for Doom Patrol. I don't know. That team just calls my name.
Well, it's an issue #1 too, so it's a good spot to jump in and try and catch up on a series.
Yeah. Any comic book writer out there, if you make something stupid enough, I will put my money on
It's a request for proposal. Let me know what you're gonna put some
Right.
up with. We're gonna do this.
All right, so for my second pick, I've got my indie book obsession never ends. We've got 7 Years in Darkness #1 by, I'm gonna probably butcher this last name, Joseph Schmalke. But yeah, so basically the synopsis I got on this one was it comes out on the 29th of March, so like all the way near the end of the month. But it's the Academy of Black Magic has reopened its doors for the first time in 200 years. 72 children will walk through the academy doors for freshman year, but only 7 are able to graduate and walk out alive.
Damn.
So they're calling it a 7-year journey that starts with this issue.
I was about to say that I didn't care about what the story was because I saw that one person was doing all of it, which is immediately they get my respect.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
If you can manage to do all the artwork, all the penciling, all the color, all the writing, everything by yourself, that's a task, man.
It doesn't matter if the book sucks. If you put your time into it, I will respect it. But then you told me that synopsis and 1-2
I
combo.
find these random ones, man, and it's from what I'm assuming is a pretty small publisher called Comics Express Publishing. And I love finding these little like
it looks like it's year 1. It says
hidden gems that are just under everybody's radar.
So what I want to know is what is your process for finding these? Like, where do you look and
I find them on previewsworld.com under the comic books or graphic novels section, or I find them honestly on League of Comic Geeks. If you go into their new comic book section and just scroll down for each week, it shows you everything that's coming out that's distributed from Diamond or Penguin.
Everything. It's perfect. That's how I got Doom Patrol, honestly.
And Previews World, you can go on there. They've usually got it all in there, like I said, in like the quote unquote comics and graphic novels section. And those usually have all the indie stuff normally.
Yeah, like for me, it's I mean, I do want to thank the people at Crossover Comics because without them, I wouldn't know half of the things I know. Because I'll be at work and just get a notification like this book is coming out, and I'm like,
I was gonna say, quick side note, one of the founders of Crossover Comics is actually ComicBookStache. He is the one who came up with the idea of the Discord server. I was one of the first few people in there, but you were the one who came up with the whole idea. And now we've got like 5 podcasts coming out of that group. We've got people doing trivia shows on TikTok Live. Like those guys that whole thing has exploded.
I don't know, man. A lot of things I wouldn't know without them because I'm sitting in my office and they just new book coming out, and I'm like, okay, let me add it to the pull list. And my work here is done. Sometimes
that's where
I feel guilty.
Dude, it's crazy, but that's where I find a lot of the indie stuff is that, and then Twitter. Twitter's a good place. Just look up indie comics, and you'll find all kinds of stuff that's coming out.
It's a great time to be alive.
I feel so alive.
All right, so I guess we're down to Comic Book Stache's final March pick here. What do we got here, man?
Vanish #5.
Oh, Donnie.
It's Donnie Cates book. I've read the first 2 issues. This is really, really interesting stuff.
I love Donnie, man, and I've only read the first 2 issues. I have.
Oh, okay.
But Donnie Cates is one of those writers that I just have to buy it. I don't know. Like I read the first 2 and I immediately loved it. Like I want to keep reading it. That's why I'm excited for it. But even with Thor, we're in some areas, like I would say Thor, there's like 4 volumes out right now if you want to split it up in volumes. Maybe #3 wasn't the best one, but I'll defend it. I'll stick to Donnie Cates.
Now, see, I'm a little bit torn on Donnie Cates. I've mixed, I love his indie stuff. His indie stuff is outstanding. I'm not a huge fan of his Marvel stuff. Personally, I think he tries to make every Marvel character he gets a hold of into like some big cosmic entity. And I don't feel like that's necessary for a lot of the characters.
He makes every Marvel character the strongest version of the
Yes,
character.
like he maxes everybody out. And so then like whoever takes over after him, it's kind of a letdown because they have to nerf the heck out of him.
Yes.
And he
But
retcons a lot of stuff pretty frequently in Marvel when he goes
I
over there. He
I
he
will
he tends
say
to just scrap anything that happened before his run.
I will say I don't know if you read the Thor run that he did,
I've read some
but
of it.
the
Mhm.
Donald Blake arc. I mean, what a cool concept.
Like, he
Basically, for
does
people,
cool stuff. Like, Thor is one of the characters that Donny Cates works really well on because
Mhm.
Thor's already a big cosmic
Yeah.
powerhouse. So it makes sense to put somebody like who likes to do that kind of stuff on him, like Donny Cates, who can actually make him seem like the powerhouse he actually is.
yeah, like for people who didn't
But then he
read it
turns
or
Hulk into a
interested,
spaceship. I mean,
yeah. Basically, for me, the Donald Blake thing is so interesting because Donald Blake, no one had touched that character in decades.
Mhm.
And then what Donny Cates does is that Donny Cates, it's not that Donald Blake stopped existing, but he was like, basically they switched spots. And Donald Blake is in this like happy, like paradise world that's fake, basically.
Mhm.
And at some point in Thor, he's like, you know what? I need a break. I'm gonna, become Donald Blake again. Just gonna take a break. Let Donald take the reins. And Donald Blake comes out a maniac. He's been there for 40 years. Discovered that world was fake. Killed everyone in there, and just like became the biggest
Yeah, it comes back
villain.
as like a psychopath. Like, it was, dude, it's great.
And that's
I
because
gotta read that. That's
that,
that's interesting because
His Thor run was really good.
that's really, yeah, it's fascinating how they come up with these runs and these ideas because you take something that is like from the origins of the character, right? Like,
That hasn't been mentioned in like 40 years.
because it's out of fashion, to have a
Mhm.
hammer and call and like become Thor, and like it doesn't make sense anymore. It's silly, right? Like it's been,
Well,
whatever.
especially since, like, even if they had been doing that up until the MCU, say, at that point, it really wouldn't make sense anymore. Like,
no.
no, this is now how, no.
Well, Donny Cates has this thing where he says, if they allow me to use like this sandbox, I'll use it to its fullest
Mm,
Mhm.
capacity, which I
yeah.
respect. I do know he said that he never wants to touch Spider-Man.
Because they'll probably retcon the crap out of it, and like Spider-Man killed Uncle
So
Ben, and like
here's the thing.
it'll
No,
be
no, no.
it'll be a bad it'll be a bad
It's
thing.
even
Like,
worse than that. He said, like all his characters in Marvel become just the saddest person ever.
mm,
Yeah,
Like
by the end of the
Thor,
run, they're just completely
yeah,
traumatized.
and he did mention that like Spider-Man brings some like memories of childhood that
mm.
just were like the happiest moments of his life. So
That
he
he just
can't.
doesn't wanna mess up with his brand of storytelling.
Donny Cates is like the M. Night Shyamalan of comic writing. So like if he was to take
That's a
over
good way to
Spider-Man,
describe it.
like all 400 or whatever issues that we're at, we're all like he like suppressed the memory that he actually killed Uncle Ben, and that guy who was escaping from the wrestling match didn't exist, and you find out like it's a whole thing, and he's like, he would,
Mystery 65 years in the making,
yeah,
like
it would be nuts. It
But
would be nuts.
the thing that JJ said was right. Like he wrote. I think a lot. Some people would argue the best Venom run. You
Mm.
know, I don't know if in history, but in a while at least. And then not saying that the newest Venom run is bad, but
it's
following
not
that
as
up,
good.
Yeah.
it's such a hard thing to
If
do.
you're, I mean, it would be really interesting to interview and speak to some of the writers that have followed his runs
Just
because
to
Yeah,
see
now
that
what
would
that
the
be,
mental process is, like, okay, he just got done doing this crazy, insane thing where so and so just took over half the galaxy, and now I have to bring this character back down to reality for the start of this next run.
well, that's where you
Like
need with the Chris
but like
Claremont to come in and probably even at, I mean, his age, but
but
like
if
you
you
need,
notice, look at Venom. They didn't go for Eddie Brock. They went for his son, which I think is a smart enough
mm,
decision. Like, hey, Eddie Brock is God. No one can touch it. What about his son? And it makes sense because
mm,
Venom is the symbiote, not the
yeah.
person.
yeah.
But I don't know, man. Donnie, like I've always wanted to interview Donnie, but now I kind of want to do what you said. Like I just want to interview people who have followed up Donnie.
That's an entire podcast, man. Like every week or every
100%.
month, it's a conversation with a new new writer who just
Who's had to
followed.
take over for
But
Donnie.
that's the thing about his indies. Like the indies are just great. I mean, Vanish. I don't even know how to describe Vanish. I don't know if there's a synopsis. It's like Harry Potter, but like
In Space with
twisted.
Guns.
Yeah, it's like Harry Potter
Like,
in like Space with Guns and 20 years after the events of Harry Potter. Um, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, God Country is the first book that made me cry. As you remember reading
Wow.
the end of God Country and just
and then he's
crying.
also done Crossover, which is half of where we took the name
Yes,
for Crossover Comics was from that book.
Crossover is not the first book that made me cry, but that's the saddest moment in it. I think it's issue like 13 of Cross. Might be wrong. Issue something of Crossover. He's in it. Spoiler, it's not that big of a spoiler. It's in the real world.
Yeah,
He
it's
shows
like
up.
I don't know if you've ever read Crossover or not, Michael, but it's
No.
basically what would happen if the comic book world somehow had a way to branch into the real world
That's
and
cool.
characters and real
That's cool.
people were actually able to interact, and it actually goes horribly wrong, like
course.
horribly wrong.
Of course it does.
But you know, say any
A
more
bunch
than
of
that, you're gonna
writers
give
start
away
dying.
the whole thing. Yeah, like oh yeah, it goes crazy. But
That's
there's like a big
cool.
political sub story going on throughout the whole book, and like it's really really interesting.
But you
Man,
get
you
Donny
guys are making me
Cates.
want to get into these modern runs, man.
Dude,
Damn.
you really need to, man. I'm telling
For,
you.
for a crossover, it's like 2 trades. You got it.
Yeah, so far it's only 2 trades long, so
Okay.
it's not much to get through.
But
I
Donnie,
really want.
it's Donnie's most like vulnerable because it's him. Like it's
Yeah, he's
actually
in
him
the
in the
book. Like
page.
he put himself into the book. Like
And I
it's
remember
kind of
reading
cool.
it and just crying. Like he talks about his life in it and addiction and all that. And I just remember reading it, and even as someone who hasn't gone through those things, just I was in my girlfriend's bedroom sitting on the floor, like she was like, "Are you okay? Did something happen? Did you get a text? Someone died." And I was like, "No, it's Donny Cates."
She's like the comic book writer.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get
That's
into my
awesome.
last pick. So we're not keeping everybody here all night. I've got a book called Ridgeline. This is another random indie book that I found. Let me bring up my info here because
I gotta say, I mean, not first of all, you really chose 2 covers now that really blend in with your background.
Yes,
and that was not
Like-
actually intended. It just kind of happened that
It's
way.
the Superman one and this one, and so
I was
gotta say,
thinking the whole time. I was thinking because not to get technical, but like you can get like a black background, use screen.
Yeah.
The black becomes invisible. I was like, is that like an error?
No, that is
Like-
actually the cover of the book, which was one thing that drew me straight to it. I'm like, that's a kind of a cool way to use up negative space. 'Cause you've got
100%.
snow on the cover within all the black, and then it's just white.
that is cool.
I love it. I don't know what it's about. I don't need to know what it's about.
Now the
honestly.
question I have, could you go back to the photo?
Uh-huh.
Does the white, if you kind of reverse it, right? So you're looking at the black. If you look at the white, I wonder, probably not, but I wonder if is that a figure? You know, when like there's like 2 images.
And
No.
I'm betting it has to do something with that because the story
think-
for this is like really interesting because like a lot of indie books do like the horror themes or the magic stuff or like there's typical indie book genres, I feel
Yeah.
like you could say. This one, I don't know if it really fits into anything other than what I would call like a survival genre. Jack and Janie Sparks, a father and daughter team of wilderness survival guides, are hired to lead a fractious executive team on a grueling primitive hike on a remote mountain in Montana. Little do they know their client has enemies who find the isolated retreat to be the perfect opportunity to strike. Will they be able to use their survival skills to keep everyone alive? And that's the end of the synopsis. So it's like almost like they're trying to protect this group of people from like a group of like a hit squad on this mountain range.
That's a good story.
I don't see stuff like that in comic books very often. That's why I like going into these indie stuff, because you find different stories.
You know what I will say? James 007 right now, James Bond.
I've heard you talk about that a couple times.
That's how I feel about it. It's such a like a just guy, spy, gun, done. Nothing extra. There's no otherworldly enemy. It's just James Bond.
See, now, my question was going to be like, if you go inside the book, does the father, he's got to look like Sylvester Stallone, right? Like, so he's
got to look like an elderly Rambo, right? That's what I'm picturing.
It's got to be
Sly
Stallone, because if you see that
movie, cannot be
either that person. Or I'm picturing like a really like, do you know who Forrest Galante is? No. He's a what's the name of it? He's a biologist, but he's out in the field. Like he finds endangered species or extinct species that people thought were gone, and he's found he found an extinct caiman out in Indonesia, or I think it was. But he's basically like that, or a Steve Irwin type guy.
Okay,
buff as heck is what I'm picturing in my head.
Okay, I see. I mean, for me, one of like what's it called? Let me look it up, because I remember reading this and just laughing to myself. Cave Carson has a cybernetic eye. It's a Gerard Way book, you know. I remember it's like this grand story with aliens and everything, and Cave Carson just looks like a guy. And I just remember being like, huh, okay, that's cool. He's just a guy with a flannel and a beard. I was like, oh.
Right, like it's so often in comic books, everybody's got a persona, everybody's got a costume, everybody's got. Once in a while, it's nice to find something that's just about some normal people dealing with stuff that they don't have any business dealing with.
I put it here. Give me beer bellies. We need them.
You think we need more comic book characters with beer bellies?
Yeah, we need comic book characters with beer bellies. Not like even a full beard. Give me some patches, you know.
You need more mustaches. That's what we need.
Yes, we always need.
You need more 80s Tom Selleck style mustache going on.
Yeah, my biggest joke about that is I'm trying to convince my entire family to the day I have a kid, which like I don't know when that's gonna be, but I want them all to shave everything except for their mustache.
That's great.
And they won't do it. They will never do it.
Are you serious? Even for your kid? Yeah, they have to come through for your firstborn. Come on.